you can't do. And it's the same in regular adult filmmaking. I mean, you cannot.
A former Disney actress turned six-figure adult star just called out Sydney Sweeney's most controversial Euphoria scene, and she's not holding back one bit. If you want the unfiltered truth about Hollywood's most talked-about controversy, hit the subscribe button now. The scene. Maitland Ward, yes, the Rachel McGuire from Boy Meets World who walked away from mainstream Hollywood to become one of the industry's highest-earning adult performers, just publicly slammed and shamed Sydney Sweeney's Euphoria Season 3 as vile, disgusting, or even pathetic.
People even want to see me wear a diaper.
These are literally the words that she has used. But why exactly? Before we cover that, you need to know the truth. As ironic as it might seem, her reasoning is way more complicated than you'd think. Euphoria Season 3 dropped a storyline where Cassie Howard, played by Sydney Sweeney, launches an OnlyFans career that spirals into an increasingly extreme territory, which is not common. The show, which was already famous for pushing boundaries past the point where most networks would tap out, went somewhere that actually has adult content creators saying, "Wait, hold on. This is the type of controversy it has.
You've been a bad, bad dog."
Woof, woof.
The specific scene that is causing the nuclear-level backlash is Cassie, dressed in pigtails, wearing a sheer dress, sucking on a pacifier, and engaging in what's called age play content. There's also a scene where she drinks from a dog bowl while in this costume. It's a lot to handle, but the hair, where it gets genuinely interesting, is that the criticism isn't coming from conservative pearl-clutching or random Twitter moralists. It is coming from Maitland Ward, someone who literally works in the industry, professionally understands the industry's actual rules, ethics, and even the boundaries. Higher standards.
And like the whole child baby thing is so disgusting. And in the climate that we're in, to do that and to use Sydney Sweeney.
In an interview with TMZ, Ward literally said that there are all sorts of stuff you can't do. She clarified that there is technically room for playful, clearly adult interpretation of certain aesthetics, but also emphasized that you can do it to an extent where it's very playful, like you're an adult being childlike or something. The way it was handled was just so gross and disgusting. Think about that for a second. Someone who literally performs explicit content for a living and became a millionaire doing so while operating within an industry that has extremely strict content guidelines specifically designed to prevent exploitation, is saying that mainstream HBO drama crossed lines that actual adult platforms wouldn't allow. This is not conservative censorship, that is a professional standard. Ward went even further, pointing out the broader danger of these scenes. She said that you don't want pedophilia near this adult industry, which honestly shouldn't be a controversial statement, yet here we are having to say it about a prestige cable drama. And honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. If the age play controversy wasn't enough, Euphoria also dedicated an entire scene to create a fantasy sequence where Cassie transformed into a literal 50-foot giant woman who storms through Los Angeles like Godzilla destroying Tokyo. Apparently, when you want to convey that a character feels empowered by her newfound internet fame, the obvious choice is to make her a kaiju with this destructive chest that crashed through office buildings. Production designers and visual effects supervisors told IndieWire they looked to classic 1950s Japanese monster movies for inspiration, specifically the cult 1958 film called Attack of the 50-Foot Woman and the 1961 modern Mothra. They built an entire miniature downtown Los Angeles, complete with forced perspective buildings at different scales, with thousands of miniature bulbs and a 90-foot trans light covering the soundstage to create the perfect Twilight aesthetic.
Back away from the building and get on your knees. Lethal force will be used if you do not.
The craftsmanship is impressive. They worked with John Merritt Productions, which is a legendary model builder whose credits include Kill Bill, Speed, and Dick Tracy, to spend 6 months creating these intricate miniatures. Then they had Sydney Sweeney's character's giant chest crash through an office window where a man is watching her OnlyFans content. We're not making this up. That actually happens in the TV show. Killers, craftsmanship, cutting-edge practical effects, all to create a scene where giant breasts destroy a building. Here's the question that nobody at HBO apparently asked. Just because you can do something, does that mean you should do it? More mockery. But that's not where the controversy ends. Actually, this is where it starts. Ward's criticism goes beyond the age play content. She argues the entire Cassie OnlyFans storyline fundamentally misrepresents adult content creators rather than celebrating or even accurately depicting them. She said that it's saying how weird and creepy they are to TMZ.
It's not celebrating them, it's saying like, oh, look at how weird and creepy they are. Look, you can just go on and do whatever you want and, you'll just make money right away, which is...
There are so many creators who are really working hard to build their brands every single day, and this is disingenuous, according to what Ward said. She's got a point here. The way Euphoria portrayed Cassie's descent into increasingly extreme content while becoming the literal giant monster with all that destruction and frames adult content creation as inherently degrading, exploiting, and psychologically damaging is not something that they should have done. This is pretty rich, coming from a show that built its entire brand on explicit content and has made Sydney Sweeney, who is one of Hollywood's biggest stars, specifically because of her willingness to do those nude scenes. The show also wants to simultaneously profit from all the sexual content while also moralistically depicting anyone who creates that content professionally as broken, desperate, or morally compromised. There is no groundbreaking social commentary. It's just hypocrisy with a prestige TV budget. And you might be surprised to know, but Ward isn't the only person who has spoken against this whole drama because there are a host of other creators too. Before we cover them, subscribe to the channel, because what's coming next will shock you even more. Other creators. Sydney Leathers. Yes, that's Sydney Leathers, the adult content creator who became infamous during the whole Anthony Weiner scandal, said similar criticisms in an interview with Variety. She said that the whole Euphoria TV show is ridiculous and quite cartoonish at this point. She even specifically calls out what Euphoria shows and other platforms like OnlyFans actually allow. According to Sydney Leathers, there's so much that they have heard doing that is not even allowed on OnlyFans, and that alone is infuriating. The whole age play stuff, where she's dressed as a baby in a diaper, for example, is not allowed on OnlyFans. Now we have multiple actual adult content professionals, people who understand the industry's regulation, ethics, and community standards, publicly stating that mainstream HBO drama is depicting content that should get you immediately banned from actual adult websites. Let that sink in for a moment. The whole edgy, prestige, drama, sport trend behavior is way too extreme for an actual adult content site. Look, we also need to talk about Sam Levinson, who is Euphoria's creator, because the patron isn't new. Levinson has built his entire career on pushing sexual boundaries in his work, often specifically with the younger female characters played by young actresses. Euphoria, The Doll, and even his earlier film called Assassination Nation, there's a clear pattern of sexualizing young women under the disguise of women's empowerment. But here is the most uncomfortable question. When does exploring your sexuality become exploitation, hiding under artistic pretension? When you are writing scenes where a character dresses as a little baby for 18+ content, when you are creating sequences where her giant breasts destroy buildings, when actual adult industry professionals are saying that you have crossed all ethical lines and that their industry wouldn't, maybe it's time to ask whether your artistic vision is actually just extreme exploitation with better cinematography. The Godzilla sequence is a perfect microcosm of this problem. The production team talks about this in terms of craft and homage. The miniatures, the forced perspective, the practical effects, the cinematic references to the classic monster movies. But if we take all that technical artistry and words away, what are you actually left with? It is a fantasy sequence where a young woman literally becomes destructive, where her body is transformed into a weapon that crushes civilization, and where her empowerment is depicted as monstrous. This is just the male gaze with a bigger budget trying to fit into this industry here. The double standard? Here is what really bothers us about this whole situation. If Maitland Ward created the exact content Euphoria depicts Cassie creating, she would be immediately banned from OnlyFans for violating content policies. She would also be potentially facing legal consequences depending on the jurisdiction. Because Sam Levinson puts it in an HBO drama with expensive cinematography and those miniature cityscapes, it's suddenly a groundbreaking television show and unflinching social commentary. Sydney Sweeney gets praised for the whole brave performance. The production designers get interviewed about their unique achievements, and actual adult content creators, the people whose lives and work are supposed to be depicted, get ignored when they point out the fundamentally dishonest and harmful portrayal that is being displayed. That is not artistic freedom. This is a double standard that lets wealthy mainstream creators profit from depicting content that would destroy the careers of people they are supposedly representing. Sydney Sweeney is incredibly talented. She has proven time and again that she can be in everything from The White Lotus to reality to Anyone But You. She doesn't need to keep doing increasingly extreme nude scenes to prove her range or commitment. But Euphoria, and specifically Sam Levinson, keep pushing her into content that is becoming controversial in every single season, and in ways that could hurt her long-term career. The Godzilla sequence might be technically impressive, but it's also going to be the clip that people play when they want to mock her. The H-play content might be just acting, but it's an association that never really goes away in Hollywood. At some point, someone in Sydney's team needs to ask if it's actually serving her career or if it's serving Sam Levinson's increasingly questionable creative obsessions at Sydney Sweeney's expense. The uncomfortable truth. For Maitland Ward, who walked away from mainstream Hollywood specifically because she wanted creative control over her life and then got it monetized, she chose adult entertainment because, ironically, it gave her more freedom than playing supporting roles in sitcoms where male creators controlled everything. This included her freedom and her image. And now, she's watching a mainstream HBO drama depicting adult content creation in ways that violate actual industry ethics, all while being celebrated for their boldness. The fact that an adult actress has to lecture a Hollywood drama about appropriate sexual content boundaries is just truly wild. But it also reveals something important about our modern-day Hollywood entertainment values regarding sex work. Hollywood just wants to profit from sexuality, while simultaneously looking down on people who create 18-plus content. They want the whole edginess and viewership that the bold content brings, but also want the moral superiority of commenting on that content rather than just creating it. You can have both things in this world. Either bold content is legitimate artistic expression, in which case, you should respect the people who create it professionally and listen when they tell you've crossed the line. Or it's inherently degrading, in which case, maybe HBO shouldn't be building 90-foot translights and miniature cityscapes to depict it. In other words, what Euphoria created isn't a groundbreaking television, it's based on exploitation with just better production numbers and values. Do you think Euphoria crosses the line with Cassie's storyline? Drop your own mistake in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe because we are covering more entertainment controversies that no one ever wants to touch.